Hi everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Henry. I got off work earlier than usual that day. No texts, no calls. I just decided to head home, thinking it would be nice to surprise my wife. Maybe have dinner together. Talk for a bit. Just a normal, quiet evening. As I stepped inside, I heard laughter. Loud, careless laughter coming from the living room. I stopped near the entrance, out of sight, curious about what was so funny. Then I heard her voice. "Girls, let me introduce you to my personal doormat." The room erupted in laughter again. I stood there frozen, listening. He does everything I want, pays for everything, never complains no matter how much I spend. Honestly, I could probably tell him to lick the floor and he'd still ask if I needed anything else. Another round of laughter. I felt my grip tighten on my keys. My first instinct was to step in, say something, demand an explanation. But I didn't move. Instead, I kept listening. "You think I'm joking," she continued. "Last week, I told him I wanted to go to that spa retreat, the expensive one. I just mentioned it casually over dinner. And the next day, boom, he booked it without even thinking. He's so easy to manipulate. I don't even have to try." The way she said it, proud, entertained. Like it was a joke. Like I wasn't even a real person. One of her friends chimed in, "You're so lucky." "I wish my husband was that easy." "Lucky," my wife scoffed. "It's not luck. You just have to know how to control them. Make them feel guilty, act sweet when you need to, throw in a few fake tears now and then, works every time." The others laughed and I heard someone clinking a glass, probably raising a toast to her genius. I leaned against the wall staring at the floor. Everything she said played over and over in my head. I never questioned the money I spent on her. Never hesitated when she wanted something. I thought I was taking care of my wife. I thought I was being a good husband. But to her, I was nothing more than a wallet with legs, something to use and mock behind my back. And the worst part? This wasn't even just her. Her friends knew. They laughed about it. This was entertainment for them. I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't going to barge in. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me react. Instead, I turned around and walked out. I got back in my car, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing. Everything I had given her, every sacrifice, every effort, it had all been a joke to her. And now I had to make a decision. Not an emotional one, not a reaction fueled by anger. A real decision. One that would change everything. But one thing was clear. This doormat wasn't staying. I didn't go back home that night. Instead, I drove around aimlessly, letting the reality of what I had just heard sink in. I wasn't going to react emotionally. I wasn't going to explode in anger or confront her in some dramatic scene. That would be pointless. She didn't respect me. She never had. If I wanted to get out of this, I had to be smart. I found a cheap motel and booked a room for the night. Sitting on the bed, I pulled out my phone and started making notes. Not about my feelings. That didn't matter anymore. I needed a plan. The first thing was proof. I wasn't going to leave myself vulnerable. I had never recorded our conversations before. But now I started. Anytime she made a snide remark, anytime she treated me like an accessory instead of a person, I made sure to have it saved. Next, I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in divorce and financial protection. I spent hours researching, reading reviews, checking credentials. By morning I had an appointment schedule. I wasn't going to tell her. She didn't need to know until it was too late. Then came the finances. I logged into our bank accounts and started taking note of everything. How much we had, where the money was going. It didn't take long to confirm what I already knew. She had been spending recklessly for years. Shopping sprees, expensive vacations, beauty treatments. It was all there, clear as day, and I had let it happen. Not anymore. I opened a separate account under my name only and started transferring funds. Not everything at once. That would be too obvious. Just small amounts over time, enough that she wouldn't notice until it was too late. I also canceled our joint credit cards one by one, leaving only the ones tied directly to my name. If she tried to make another ridiculous purchase, she'd be in for a surprise. The hardest part was pretending nothing had changed. When I finally walked back into the house, she barely looked up from her phone. "Where were you?" she asked casually. "Work kept me late," I lied. She didn't question it. She never did. As long as I kept paying for her lifestyle, she didn't care where I was. That worked in my favor. Over the next few weeks, I played my role perfectly. I still smile, still nodded along when she made another selfish request, still acted like the obedient husband she thought I was. But behind the scenes, I was dismantling everything she had built. I changed the passwords to my personal accounts. I updated the beneficiary on my insurance policies. I removed her name from as many assets as I legally could without tipping her off. I even started looking for a new place to live, something small just for me. The lawyer was thorough. He helped me draft a divorce agreement that left her with exactly what she had contributed to the marriage. Nothing. The day I signed the papers, I felt lighter than I had in years. Now all I had to do was wait for the right moment to drop the bomb. And I knew exactly when that moment would come. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. A week after finalizing my plan, my wife invited her friends over again. Same group, same setting, same fake smiles. I played along like always, greeting them, offering drinks, pretending I was still the fool they thought I was. They barely acknowledged me, treating me like background noise. That was fine. Tonight, they were in for a show. Halfway through dinner, she did exactly what I knew she would. "We should do another girls' trip," she said, swirling her wine glass. "Something bigger this time. Maybe Europe." One of her friends gasped. "Oh my God, yes, Italy, Greece." "Both," my wife said, flashing a smug smile. "I mean, why not? I have my personal sponsor right here." She tilted her head toward me without even looking. That was it. My moment. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the table in front of her. "What's this?" she asked, frowning. "Open it," I said, leaning back in my chair. She hesitated, then slid a manicured nail onto the seal and pulled out the papers. At first, she didn't understand. She scanned the first page, her lips moving slightly as she read. Then she flipped to the second page. Then the third. The room went silent. Her friends looked between us, confused, waiting for her to say something. Then she did. "What the hell is this?" Her voice was sharp now, losing the fake sweetness she always wore in front of them. "Divorce papers." I said it calmly, taking a sip of my drink. She blinked at me as if I had just spoken another language. "You're joking." "No," I said, setting my glass down. "I'm done. You don't need a personal sponsor anymore. You're on your own." Her friends shifted in their seats, some covering their mouths to hide their reactions. They weren't laughing this time. She looked back at the papers, flipping through them with frantic fingers. Then she saw it, the part where I had already secured everything, the closed accounts, the assets she had no claim to, the financial support she wasn't going to get. Her face drained of color. You can't do this," she stammered, looking up at me. "You can't just." "I can," I cut her off. And I already did. Silence. She turned to her friends, looking for support. But something shifted in the air. They weren't rushing to her defense. In fact, some of them were smirking, clearly enjoying the spectacle. "You knew," she whispered to me, realization dawning in her eyes. "You knew, and I planned," I corrected her. "The way you planned every time you manipulated me. The way you bragged about it to them." I gestured around the table. I listened, and I learned. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. One of her friends let out a quiet, amused chuckle. Another sipped her wine, watching the scene unfold like it was a live soap opera. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, realized it then. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. I pushed my chair back, stood up and buttoned my jacket. "This doormat is done," I said. "Enjoy your dinner." And with that, I walked away. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. I didn't wait to hear her reaction, didn't stop to see the expression on her face. It didn't matter anymore. My part in this story was over. I had already moved most of my things into a new place, so I didn't have to return. The locks would be changed soon, and the financial ties had been severed. She had no access to my accounts, no credit cards to fall back on, nothing. The next day the call started. At first they were furious, screaming, cursing, demanding that I come back and fix this mess I created. Then came the text, the threats, the guilt-tripping. She cycled through every tactic she had ever used before, but none of them worked this time. I didn't respond, and then silence. That was the moment it hit her. The next time she tried to use her credit card, it was declined. When she went to check our joint account, it was empty. When she called the bank, they told her she had no authority over the accounts anymore. Her entire world, the comfortable life she built off my back, was crumbling. She reached out to her friends, expecting sympathy. But instead of support, she found indifference. The same women who once laughed with her, who encouraged her to use me, weren't there anymore. In fact, they seemed entertained by her downfall. Screenshots of their group chat made their way to me later, thanks to someone who clearly wanted me to know the truth. She really thought she could live off him forever. Hilarious. Serves her right. She treated him like trash, and now she's paying for it. She should have been smarter. If you're going to milk a guy, at least don't humiliate him while you do it. They had never been her real friends. They had just been waiting for the moment she stumbled, and now that she had, they were enjoying the spectacle. She tried reaching out to them individually. Some ignored her completely. Others gave her vague excuses. "I'm just really busy right now. I think I need to focus on myself for a while. I hope things work out for you." Empty words. She was alone. I didn't see her in person again, but I heard enough. She had to downgrade everything, her lifestyle, her expectations, even her home. She moved out of the house because she couldn't afford it. The vacations, the shopping sprees, the endless luxury, gone. At one point, she even tried reaching out to me again. The messages started slow, apologies, excuses, then desperation. "I messed up. I see that now. Can we just talk? I don't need money. I just need to understand why you did this. Please answer. I'm struggling." I read them, and I ignored them. She had already made it clear what I was to her. A resource. A tool. Nothing more. And now that resource was gone. Ignoring her messages wasn't difficult. I had already checked out emotionally long before I handed her those divorce papers. What surprised me was how quickly I adjusted to my new reality. For the first time in years, I wasn't constantly drained, constantly pressured to provide for someone who saw me as nothing more than a convenience. I woke up in my new apartment, a small but modern place. Nothing extravagant. Just mine. No designer decorations picked out by someone else. No pointless luxury items cluttering the space. Just simple, peaceful solitude. The first few days felt strange. Not because I missed her. I didn't. But because I was so used to catering to someone else that I had forgotten what it felt like to make choices just for myself. I no longer had to check my bank account. Worried about how much she had drained that week. No more surprise charges for handbags or overpriced spa days. No more constant demands. For the first time in a long time, I was in control. I threw myself into work, not as a distraction, but because I wanted to. Without the stress of walking on eggshells in my own home, I felt sharper, more focused. I started taking on projects I had put off for years, investing in things that actually mattered. And as my finances stabilized, I allowed myself to enjoy the things I had neglected. I went to the gym consistently, no longer skipping sessions because I was too exhausted from dealing with her drama. I reconnected with friends, real friends, the ones I had lost touch with because my marriage had consumed so much of my life. One of them, a guy I had known since college, laughed when I told him about the divorce. "I always wondered why you put up with her," he said. "It's like watching someone keep pouring water into a glass with a hole in the bottom." That stuck with me because he was right. I had spent years trying to fill a void that could never be satisfied. I took a trip, just a small one, a weekend getaway to a quiet cabin by the lake, no schedules, no obligations, just time to breathe. It was something I had always wanted to do, but never did because she never would have approved of such a simple, inexpensive trip. Now I didn't need approval from anyone. Every once in a while, I'd get an update about her. She had moved in with a relative, struggling to maintain even a fraction of the lifestyle she once flaunted. The friends who had once admired her spending habits had moved on to someone else with deeper pockets. But none of that mattered to me anymore. I wasn't bitter, I wasn't angry, I was just free. Life moved on, I moved on, weeks turned into months and I barely thought about her anymore. I had built a routine that was mine, surrounded myself with people who actually cared about me, and spent my time doing things that brought me satisfaction. Not just draining my bank account to entertain someone else, but the world has a funny way of circling back. One evening, I was at a cafe near my office, catching up on emails while waiting for my coffee. It was just another normal day, and then I heard it. Her voice. I didn't look up right away, but I felt it before I saw her. That familiar tension, the forced sweetness in her tone, like she was rehearsing a performance before even speaking. When I finally looked there, she was standing by the counter, hesitating like she wasn't sure if she should approach. She looked different. Gone were the designer bags, the flashy jewelry, the perfect salon-styled hair. She wasn't in rags or anything, but she wasn't the woman she used to present herself as. No artificial glow of excess wealth, no smug confidence. Just someone who had been knocked down by reality. She walked over. "Hey," she said, giving me a weak smile, like we were old friends catching up. I nodded but didn't say anything. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. "I've been meaning to reach out." She continued, shifting awkwardly. I didn't know if you'd want to talk." I let the silence stretch. She was waiting for me to save her from the discomfort, to give her an easy way in. I didn't. She sighed. "I just wanted to say, I was wrong about everything." I tilted my head, feigning curiosity. "Everything?" Her lips pressed together. I treated you badly. I didn't appreciate what I had. And I see that now." I let out a short breath, not quite a laugh, just a reaction. "Took you long enough." She swallowed hard. "I lost everything, you know. The house, the lifestyle, the people I thought were my friends." She shook her head. "They turned on me so fast. I was stupid to think they actually cared." I didn't respond. What was there to say? I had already known that. She hesitated, then took a deep breath, like she was bracing herself for something. I miss you, she said. I miss us. I let that sit in the air for a moment before I answered. There was never honest, I said. There was you, and then there was me, the guy paying for everything while you mocked me behind my back. She flinched like she hadn't expected me to be so direct. Maybe she thought time had softened me, that I'd be willing to rewrite history and pretend things weren't as bad as they were. I wasn't. She reached out as if to touch my hand, but I pulled back before she could. I thought maybe we could talk, maybe start over. I shook my head. There's nothing to start. Her eyes glistened with the beginnings of tears, but I didn't care. Maybe they were real. Maybe they weren't. It didn't matter. She had spent years making me feel small, treating me like an accessory to her life. She thought I would always be there, always willing to fix things, to keep playing my role. She was wrong. I grabbed my coffee, stood up, and looked at her, one last time. Take care of yourself, I said, and then just like before I walked away. Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.